Well, welcome everyone to the first student webinar for the 2026 Schweickart Prize in 2026. Thank you all for joining us today. And so with that, I will now pass it over to Rusty B, who will introduce you to our team. Next slide.
Again, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. We are so excited to see so much interest in the Schweickart Prize. To start things off, I'd like to introduce the team who will be managing the prize this year. I am Rusty Schweickart, Schweickart Prize Chair, and son of Apollo 9 astronaut Rusty Schweickart. My twin brother Randy is co-chair of the prize. He and I lead the development of the Schweickart Prize selection process and ultimately execute the process to determine the prize winner. Joining us from the B612 Foundation to help manage the program is Delphine. Most of the communications you will have and will receive in the future will be coming from her. Also joining us today is a previous winner of the Schweickart Prize, Joe DeMartini, who's the winner of the 2024 prize. You'll get to hear more from him about his experience with the application later in the presentation. And finally, also joining us is B612 co-founder and former astronaut Rusty Schweickart. Hi, Dad. Would you like to say a few words?
Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Rusty, and welcome to everyone. I think you all are privileged in a way to be interested in near-Earth asteroids and planetary defense and the future of non-impacts, which is why we exist. Yeah, it's really been a terrific pleasure for me for the last 25 years to be working on reordering the solar system ever so slightly to enhance the survival of life here on planet Earth. And I hope you can join us in that amazing and wonderful and rewarding effort. With that, I'll pass it on to Randy.
It actually comes back to Rusty.
Oh, back to Rusty. Okay.
Yeah, inspired by Danica Remy, CEO of the B612 Foundation, and Nancy Ramsey, Rusty's adoring wife, my brother and I and our wives, along with several others from the B612 community, founded the Schweickart Prize to honor Rusty and establish a lasting tribute to him in the form of an award that would inspire the next generation of planetary defense experts and advocates. You can see here that the prize includes, yes, that's a real meteorite. And I imagine that if you ask Joe, he can tell you about the many amazing contacts that he's been able to make since receiving the award. While there's only a single winner each year, we expect that the research and learning that is done to generate a proposal for the Schweickart Prize will encourage and support our best applicants encourage many of you to pursue careers that will ultimately benefit planetary defense. To further encourage and support our best applicants, we will be awarding honorable mentions to the runner-up proposals that the selection committee determines to be deserving of recognition. These individuals or teams will receive a certificate and will be put in contact with subject matter experts to further develop the ideas in their proposals. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. Randy here. Would like to talk to you about the 2026 application process. There are three basic phases to the selection process. The first, phase one, consists of a simple pre-application form that the applicant completes to provide the team with basic identification information. This phase is open. Please go to and fill out the form on the Schweickart Prize website. We have simplified the form to try to encourage students to rapidly complete this step. Students can apply as an individual or as a group. We ask that in the case of a group application, all members are identified and a single team lead is designated as the primary contact to the Schweickart team. We also request that a mentor is identified for the applicant or group to ensure they have a knowledgeable guide or expert to assist them in the proposal development process. This mentor does not have to be your thesis advisor necessarily, And it is preferential that the expert is an expert on the topic of your proposal. Teams must be limited to 6 members in total. A recurring question from previous years was the qualifications of the team members. The team leader must be an active graduate professional school student or have received their advanced degree in the past year, that is, in 2025. The rest of the team members can be undergraduates or fellow graduate students, but they must be currently enrolled in a program. The second phase is the full application package, and note that the deadline for this submission is the 4th of February, coming right up. Phase 2 consists of 3 primary things. The first, we request that the applicants provide 2 separate letters of recommendation. One would typically be provided by an advisor or mentor, focusing on the career aspirations and leadership potential of the applicant or team lead. The second should be provided by an expert in the field of the applicant, or preferably the proposal that the applicant is submitting. This adds weight to the proposal topic and ensures oversight by a subject matter expert. The second item, the core and by far the most important part of the prize application, is a 500-word proposal describing a solution to one of the key challenges in planetary defense. Proposals may include figures and tables. Captions, references, and links do not apply to the word count. You need to take advantage of this. 500 words is not a lot of words to describe a complex proposal. So think of it as an executive summary. We'll talk a bit more about the proposal on the next slide. The third item in phase 2, the successful applicant will also be selected for the potential for leadership, academic merit, and commitment to furthering the proposal. In support of these aspects, applicants are asked to provide a 250-word career aspiration statement and a copy of their academic records. Moving on to phase 3. Phase 3 of the selection process is only applicable to a set of finalists chosen from the full set of applicants. This phase consists of a set of video conference interviews by the selection committee with each finalist. Finalists answer questions from the selection committee about their project and respond to critiques and suggestions for strengthening their proposal. Finalists are then requested to submit a final version of their application, incorporating ideas and comments from the interview discussion. This final version is allowed to be up to twice the length of the original proposal, that is in terms of the words, so 1,000 words. We anticipate that finalist interviews will be conducted March 30th through April 1st, with the final proposal submissions being due on or before April 17th. The prize winner and all other finalists will be notified about the award decision at the end of April. This will allow enough time to prepare for the public announcement of the Schweickart Prize winner on Asteroid Day, June 30th, 2026. Next slide, please. So I think one of the things that people obviously want is some guidance about creating their proposal, writing their proposal. Applicants often want to know what makes a winning proposal. So we're providing some guidance here along with some learnings from the 2025 process. Number 1, be creative. Think outside the box. This is the chance to really get your creative juices flowing. While your dissertation work may be what you know best, extend it, extrapolate it. Don't be afraid to go with something totally unrelated. The way I think about this is in choosing a topic, it's more important to look at the field of planetary defense and find a gap, find a need, and then if your field of expertise, the topic that you're studying, fixes this, then that's the way you want to think about it. Find the gap and then apply your expertise or thought process or project to that particular need. In our 2024 winner, for example, Joe's sunset proposal was not associated with his dissertation research at all. He'll talk a little bit more about that. Our 2025 winner, Jordan's team proposal, focused on space policy, while the team comes from various academic backgrounds, including astronomy, philosophy, and engineering. Number 2, think big. The Schweickart Prize Selection Committee is looking for big ideas. How will your idea impact planetary defense when implemented fully into the future and across the globe? Also, there are so many amazing advances in space technologies these days, and proposing novel ways to use and combine these advancements to improve planetary defense is an effective approach to proposal idea generation. Our 2024 winner, Joe's proposal, incorporated use of unique Rubin observatory capabilities and B612's Atom Thor asteroid discovery and verification technology in his proposal. Very effective. Number 3, emphasize impact over personal executability. Ideas that are actionable or impactful broadly across the planetary defense community are more likely to be selected for further consideration. Don't limit yourself to what you yourself might be able to accomplish. We are looking for ideas that the planetary defense community can act on. This is the chance to make the community aware of your great idea. Example, in the case of our 2025 winner, the team had short-term goals and had long-term goals, but all of them required a huge community to be able to execute and make possible their policy proposal. Next, I'd like to have Joe tell us about his experiences with the 2024 Schweickart Prize and provide some guidance for the 2026 applicants. Over to you, Joe. Next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Randy. So hi, everybody. I'm Joe DeMartini, and as has been said, I'm the 2024 winner. And I just want to offer you some of the advice that I took away from my time applying for the Schweickart Prize here. The first one, and one of the bigger ones, and Randy touched on this as well on the last slide here, is to brainstorm several ideas and really leave your comfort zone. My thesis research is on asteroid interiors and surfaces, and my proposal was about observing, which is something that I have very little experience with at all. But the idea is to find a gap, and in my case, a literal blind spot in the planetary defense network right now. And it wasn't just this one idea that I generated. In my initial brainstorming session, I had ideas about observing. I had ideas that were more related to my thesis research about interiors and surfaces. I had a couple of ideas about communications and even some about space policy as well. And what I did was I took each of these ideas, or each of these categories, and I pared them down into 1 or 2 good ideas each. And then refined those a little bit more. And eventually I went to my mentor, this trusted person in my network, an expert who I know and value the opinion of. And I said, look, these are the ideas that I got. My favorite ones are this one and this one. And what do you think? Which do you think is the most feasible here? Which do you think fills the biggest gap? Which do you think would be the most impactful? Because that's what you're looking for, is an impactful and an innovative solution here. So don't constrain yourself to what you know best. You've got enough time to do a little bit of background reading and put together an idea in a field that's not necessarily quite your own. The next thing that I want to say is when you're actually writing your proposal, try to tell a story. 500 words is not a lot. It's 1 page, or most of 1 page. Sometimes, if it's depending, it might not even be a whole page. So you need to grab the reader very quickly and then move into the establishing the problem, proposing your solution, and then showing how it's innovative, how it's going to affect the broad community, and how it's going to change planetary defense. In my case, I started with the Chelyabinsk impact, a short description of the super bolide that exploded over Chelyabinsk in 2014. And it's a big event. It's something that people remember, and it really grabs the viewer in, or the reader in, and shows them sort of, this is an issue that we had. We didn't see this thing in time, and it caused all of this damage. These people were hurt, and we need to be able to do something about this, right? And that's how you draw somebody in, and then you can tell your story of your proposal from there. The other thing is, when and if you make it to the interview stage here, advocate for your proposal. right? You are your own best supporter. And when you go into that room talking to Rusty and Danica and everybody else in the interview stage, be excited about your proposal because you came up with this, and if you don't think your idea is good, nobody else is going to either. So you have to know that your proposal is the best one out there. Convince yourself and then convince everybody else as well. After that, I would say it's important to consider feasibility and achievability to a degree. As Randy mentioned, it's not necessarily something that one person alone, that you alone can achieve, but something that the community can achieve. And think about it as, having these stages, these steps, something that's doable on a short time scale. And then what's the next step that you would take after that? And discuss that in the proposal. And then what's the next step that you could take after that? What does it look like in 5 years, and then in 10 years, and then in 50 years? And how does this revolutionize planetary defense from today all the way onwards? The last thing that I'll say, and probably the most important advice that I'll give you, is to get as many opinions and reviews on your proposal as you possibly can. I had my roommates read it. I had my office mates read my proposal. I had all of my mentors read my proposal. I even had my mom read my proposal. So everybody who you talk to is going to have different experiences and different advice and a different way of thinking about things. And if you can convince all of them that your idea is a good one, then you know you really have something special. So that'll be it for me. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions later. And I'll pass it back to the next slide.
Thanks, Joe. So as we mentioned before, our website, schweikartprize.org, is where you can find a whole group of resources that could help inspire your proposals and learn more how planetary defense may be related to your area of study. You'll also be able to see the final winning proposal from both Joe and Jordan in 2025. Sorry. And so if you have any questions related to the deadline, eligibility, or other application-related information, feel free to send an email to info@schweickart.org. Do note, though, that if your questions are pretty specific on your proposal and whether you think it applies towards the Schweickart Prize, that is something that you should probably direct over to the subject matter expert that you are in contact with. From previous applications, a lot of this tends to be the same person that writes your letter of recommendation, or, as we mentioned before, is your main mentor in developing that proposal. So just as a last reminder, as we mentioned before, the deadline for the 2026 Schweickart Prize is February 4th, which, as Randy mentioned, is right around the corner. So I would definitely say don't forget to submit the pre-application form, and then get all of your material into or send that over to the info@schweikartprize.org by February 4th. And in case you aren't able to join this year's round of applications, I would highly recommend signing up for our mailing list to receive updates as they come out for the 2027 Schweickart Prize. Next slide. And so with that, let's open it up for questions. Feel free to submit your questions through the chat, or you're also welcome to unmute yourself. You can even raise your hand if there's anything you'd like to mention. And just as a reminder, try to keep them related to the Schweickart Prize. And with that, do we have any questions? I know a good icebreaker was that, again, as we mentioned before, 500 words is not a lot to talk about these complex ideas. And so I think if you haven't already discussed that, Joe, just if you had any advice on condensing them down, like what type of, like the detail level that you expected when developing your proposal.
Yeah, so when I was applying in that first year, we didn't have this instruction about figures and tables and captions and things not counting towards the word count, and so I was hesitant to add anything there, in fear that it would take up some of my space for explanation. But I know that Jordan, last year's winner, made excellent use of figures and graphics in their team's proposal, and they mentioned yesterday something like cutting out 2.5 paragraphs into one figure, which became the key visual for their proposal. So if you can figure out something like that, that would be a massive time saver. I wish that I had thought to do that for my proposal. It would have saved a lot of space. I might have been able to write even a little bit more. Um, for me, though, working just with text, I would say that it goes back to reviewing your work a lot and figuring out the right balance of technical language, which you don't want a ton of, and discussion of the idea, right? So you need just enough to show that you know what you're talking about, but not so much that you completely lose the reader. So you need to think about the audience that you're writing to. And that was a big thing that I was thinking about as I was extending my proposal in the second stage from 500 to 1,000 words, was who are the people that are going to be reading this? And it's people who are in the planetary defense community, but it's not necessarily people who have a PhD. So if you're writing about something that you yourself do as your thesis work, then you're going to need to pare down the jargon and figure out how to communicate this effectively to a little bit more general audience, a science-minded audience, of course, but not astrophysicists necessarily, right? We want policymakers and communications experts to be able to read and understand this as well. So it's a lot about the language that you use and trying to be as concise as you possibly can. I think I might have done 4 or 5 different edits where I was just finding places to condense my language into the shortest, most concise, but still accurate phrasing that I could for my proposal. And I think that was very valuable.
Awesome, thanks. And there was and I'll direct this question over to Randy and Rusty, where the question is, I assume that multiple proposal objectives are the best approach. Does this approach include short and long-term goals? So I'll pass it over to you, Randy or Rusty B.
I think I'll let Rusty respond next, but my thought is that multiple objectives is great, but I would say if there is one of those objectives that is most impactful for planetary defense, that is actually the better approach than providing, say, you have so much benefit to this field and that field and that field and so forth. I would focus again on impact. That is to say, what has the greatest impact, potential impact on the planetary defense field? And then, yes, short-term goals, longer, as Joe talked about, then providing, what is the short-term idea, and then how does that get expanded in the future, and how does that get expanded even further, maybe globally? So I would say don't think that the breadth of impact is the best way. I would say the most impactful aspect on planetary defense, again, to materially advance our ability to defend ourselves from an asteroid impact. That is going to be the key way to respond.
Yeah, and all I would add is that, like you said, you only got 500 words, so you really can't address multiple objectives very thoroughly with that many words. So, yeah, the most impactful sounds right.
Great. And I think just sort of to follow up on that is that, again, planetary defense is a field that covers a lot of different areas of studies. I know Joe's proposal was a bit more on the technical aspect, but Jordan's proposals really did address the impact of communication and global collaboration and just, working with that. And so taking an example that there are the legal aspects of planetary defense, the ethical aspects and all that stuff really shows how they're, even though you might have one idea in planetary defense, it could easily be covering different areas of studies. So I think another question that I personally had, because, as a student, and I love to discuss this, is that, Joe, as you mentioned, preparing for the interviews, you felt that you needed to, be well prepared for that. But in the interview itself, did you feel like it was more of an open discussion? And how did that affect the final proposal that you developed? If you wanted to expand a bit on that.
Yeah. So I'll say it was nerve-wracking leading up to the interviews. Rusty here is a big name, and I wanted to make sure that I had everything absolutely locked up, that I knew all of my stuff, and that I was going to impress the committee. And they had sent a little bit of feedback beforehand, and I was going through everything. I was reading journal articles and studying things that I never even needed to look at, but to make sure that I knew every bit about everything. And I was doing interview practice with my friends who are in the industry, and working up all of these nerves. But when you actually get to the interview, they're not grilling you on everything about your proposal, trying to poke holes in it. They're excited about it. That's the reason you made it to the finalist stage, is because they also think it's a good idea, and they have the knowledge and the experience from decades in the planetary defense community in this space to try to help you push it forward into something that could be even more impactful or even more critical to the future of planetary defense. And it was much more of a discussion and this sort of sharing of ideas and floating. It was almost a brainstorm at some points, which was really cool to have with these people who, as someone interested in planetary defense, I had been looking up to for years. So yes, it was actually a much more relaxed environment than I was anticipating. You get those first couple of minutes where it's, oh, Rusty Schweickart is there on the other side of my computer screen, and that's very intimidating. And then you sort of, it becomes very comfortable very quickly. And you just get to talk about your idea and advocate for your idea and listen to what other people think about it. And I encourage you, if you make it to this stage, to go into it with a growth mindset, with a learning mindset, because the more you can take away from the experience of these great folks, the better your proposal will be, and the better your future in the planetary defense community will be.
I guess I
Awesome.
can add one observation or comment here, and that is, when we began B612 Foundation back in 2001, we really thought that what we were dealing with was fundamentally a technical issue, namely, early warning to find them and do predictions of, is there going to be an impact, and then a deflection. But it was about a year or 2 years after we really began this that we started realizing that there was a really heavy geopolitical overlay on what we assumed was by default almost was a technical issue. It's multidimensional, and you've heard this before, but think through what planetary defense really means. Somebody's not only got to have a way to do something, but the world is at risk with asteroid impacts, and the world is involved in making a decision to act in an instance of a predicted impact. When you think about that, what you realize is that decision process that's going on involves law, it involves politics, it involves public communication. I mean, the world has got to support something that it really doesn't intuitively understand. We all understand storms and floods and things of that kind, but think through the power of public opinion when somebody starts talking about spending billions of public money to deflect something. So you really take advantage of the B612 site and look at the information there, come to understand the big picture of planetary defense. And that's where you're going to find, as Rusty B said in the beginning of this Zoom, the gaps that exist. That's where you really, I guess it was Randy actually, but that's where you want to really understand where are the big holes that are going to become a real challenge when this threat is real, and it will become real. Believe me, it's simply a matter of probability. Think Las Vegas. Okay, I'm going to stop there and go for the questions here. Let's have Q&A.
Yeah, actually, I just sort of wanted to follow up with that, Joe, on, of course, after you have that interview, you write that 1,000-word proposal. But I wanted to ask you about all the opportunities that you got from winning the Schweickart Prize, and whether that just meant expanding your network, or if that just gave you a little bit of more support into figuring out what you wanted to do once you got your PhD.
Yeah, no, this is actually an excellent question. So the first thing, right, is that meteorite is super cool, and I get to show it off to everybody, and it's awesome, and everybody goes, "Whoa, you've got a real meteorite," and it's as big as my fist, and it's awesome. I cannot overstate how cool it is to have that meteorite.
No,
But
it's a really small asteroid. It's not a meteorite.
Thank you. It's exactly. But in terms of other things, maybe less physically tangible, my network absolutely was expanded. I was put in touch with the folks at Rubin Observatory, which is running the Legacy Survey of Space and Time right now, which is this huge new all-sky survey in the southern sky, and they got first light mid last year, and we got all of these amazing images, and the first data release is coming down the pipe later this year, and I got to be put in touch with the leadership there in the solar system science aspect of Rubin Observatory, which for a PhD student is something I never would have expected. And these guys put me. I got to talk to three different people. In different branches of sort of the solar system part of the Rubin Observatory, and I got involved in it from somebody who had never even thought about doing telescope, big telescope survey science. Suddenly I was a part of the Rubin team, and that's amazing, right? Beyond that, I mean, the Schweickart Prize looks incredible on my resume. I think it's probably in large part the reason that I have this amazing postdoc here in Helsinki, Finland right now, doing more research on asteroids and figuring out near-Earth asteroid populations and working with brilliant scientists from around the world. It opened the way to start conversations. Still at conferences, I have people coming up to me and saying, "Hey, you're that guy who won the Schweickart Prize. I saw your proposal. I listened in when you were awarded at the announcement." And it'll be people whose publications I've been reading for years, and who I think of as giants in my field, and they know who I am. They know my name, and they recognize my face, and it's a conversation starter. And then I get to start collaborations with those folks as well. It's opened more doors than I can possibly say, and I'm sure it'll continue to open more. So it's a huge thing. It's the first planetary defense prize of its kind, right? When I think about my colleagues from grad school, most of them doing cosmology or solar science and those kinds of things. And there are a lot of fellowships and things that are specifically for those fields, even for exoplanets nowadays, because it's such a big field. But for planetary defense specifically, and probably because it's so interdisciplinary, as we've kept saying here, this is really the only prize of its kind. And as someone who wants to have a career in planetary defense, winning this award is the best start that I can possibly imagine.
Thanks, Joe, for that. I just want to kind of add in there, our organization's been around for 20 plus years, coming up close to 25. And it is a nascent field that, Rusty and, a few other folks started this sort of global conversation about planetary defense in the public forum. And it is a multidisciplinary area. And so we're really hopeful that people who are in this space and space law policy and in public communications, we hope we see applications from people who are interested in advancing ideas in those fields as well. Obviously, there is a lot of underlying work that has been done at universities that have been supporting a lot of the space missions, asteroid-related missions, asteroid-related research around characterization and what have you. But part of what we really hope with the Schweickart Prize is that we're able to elevate the other voices that need to be at the table for this planetary defense question. So, we highly encourage people to, we had a couple of really great proposals last year that got honorable mention. And so while I suspect most people on this call are on the technical side, we really do want to see those other proposals and highlight the voices of the future who will drive the conversations around planetary defense in these other dimensions as well. Rusty, do you want to add anything to that? You have to take off mute.
Yeah, thanks. What I'm thinking here is that we need to, in the future, add a similar session to what we're having right here for mentors and outreach leaders around, so that we can, if each of them has 5 students who are a potential in what you were just saying, Danica, that would be very helpful here. But yeah, it's extremely important to realize the multidimensional aspect, because what has been paid the most attention to is the technical side of the challenge. And that's natural, and it's okay. It's necessary, as a matter of fact. But when you really get down to an actual threat evolving and dealing with it, all of a sudden you realize, the big picture is not just technical. So at some point, we're really anxious to see, some creative ideas beyond the technical. But that shouldn't stop anybody here who's purely technical. Technical is also very important.
And I just wanted to follow up with something you said, Joe, which just, makes my heart burst, about how much you love that prize. I have to tell you, though, when Rusty and I started Asteroid Day a decade ago, I had imagined some version of the Rusty Prize existing, and I had imagined the opportunity to give a piece of space to people who are going to be working on solutions for the future 10 years ago. And so the fact that you're just reiterating what I thought would be really cool for whoever was doing great work, but in fact, it is really cool.
Danica, we're all a piece of space. I hate to tell you. A few billion pieces of space, but yeah, it's our neighborhood.
No, great. And I do want to follow up, as we are still building our community of Schweickart Prize ambassadors around the world. And they have been a essential part of spreading the word through universities and programs and conferences about the Schweickart Prize. And so in the case, also with the honorable mentions and even the Schweickart Prize winner, they do hold the prize, but they also become a great opportunity of, giving students the chance to talk with them and spread the word on how great the prize is. And so with that, all right, well.
Thanks everyone for attending.
Yeah, thank you. We look forward to reading them.
Thank you guys for all the information. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.